I love you.
And we back, baby. What's the word? Yo, we had an amazing night last night. I was excited about it. I hope you guys were too. It was a snooze fest. I'm not going to lie. I was going to go memes towards the second half. But nonetheless, the Chicago Bears pulled out the win. I am Mike Hughes, a.k.a. The Shy Kid. We have an amazing show for you guys tonight. I'm excited about it, man. I'm excited about it. It is an all-Shy recap. If you haven't been here for an all-Shy recap before, well, you're in luck because I'm here to explain it. It's an amazing, amazing segment. It's my favorite segment on the whole fucking platform. We dissect everything Chicago sports that is currently relevant. Obviously, as much as I would love to talk about the Chicago Sky, we are not in season. And after the Teresa Witherspoon signing, there's not a lot to talk about right now. But we got a lot of news going on throughout the city. We have the rookie, the man, the myth, the legend himself, the phenom, Connor Bedard, breaking NHL records every single day, it feels like. We're going to be talking about him and the Chicago Blackhawks and the state of Perry that just came down. They're going to be releasing him or sending him to waivers. It's a whole thing. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. It's another scandal in the Chicago Blackhawks organization, so you don't love that. But the Chicago Bears winning 12-10 against the Minnesota Vikings. Josh Dobbs having his worst game of the season yet with 4 interceptions. I loved when he flexed the touchdown with Hawkinson towards the end of the game. Like he didn't just throw 4 interceptions throughout the entire game. We got Shohei Ohtani, Bo Bichette, Tyler Glasnow, and Shane Bieber talks for the Chicago Cubs. And of course, you know we're going to sit up here and talk shit about the Chicago Bulls. But with that being said, man, I just want to say how much I appreciate everybody tuning in today, everybody for being a part of the live, being a part of the community. If you're watching right now on TikTok, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, wherever, you can always find me on Instagram and TikTok or any social media platform at theshy.kid. So I appreciate everybody for always tuning in. Appreciate everybody for always being here, man. It truly does mean the world. And just really quick, before we get into today's podcast, before we get into what's going on, we're running a toy drive soon, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not going to break down what's all going into that, but it's going to be a toy drive in mid-December. It's going to be in Chicago on the north side. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be breaking that news probably within the next couple of weeks because I know December is right around the corner. I want to give people time to prepare. I want to give people time to get off work or whatever it may be, but it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be basketball-based. I'm really excited about it. I hope you guys are too. But with that being said, man, let's get into today's episode because, man, the Cubs got a lot to talk about. But they're going to have to sit to the side right now. We got to talk some Bears, baby. We got to talk some Bears. The Bears win in a snooze fest, 12-10. This is the first time since 1993, since the Chicago Bears faced off against the Atlanta Falcons, that they won a game without scoring a touchdown. Cairo Santos, who started the game off by missing an extra point, or by missing a field goal, pardon me, he puts the team on his back, gives us all 12 points. So shout out to Cairo Santos because without him, this game wouldn't have been very bad. Imagine if we had Cody Parkey still. It would have been a fucking travesty. But, you know, with that being said, man, we saw a lot during this game that I feel like we could sit up here and talk about today. First and foremost, I want to give love to the defense. The defense looked absolutely phenomenal. Player of the game, without a doubt, Jalen Johnson. Matt Eberflus, what a joke. In talking about this game ball goes to the entire team. Fuck that. You mean the entire team? You mean the team with penalties, with over 100 yards worth of penalties? You mean the offense that couldn't score a touchdown? You mean the defense that didn't really show up until the second half of the game? I mean, bro, when you really look at it, Jalen Johnson was everywhere. This man was a psychopath. I mean, he was doing every single thing asked of him. He was out there. He was making plays, deflections, interceptions. I mean, he almost had a pick six again. You'll love to see it. But the defense as a whole looked absolutely phenomenal from a defensive perspective. We had interceptions from TJ Edwards, Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson, and Jaquan Brisker. So that was a lot of fun to see. From a sack perspective, we had Montez Sweat with 1.5 sacks, Jaquan Brisker with a half a sack. And I believe that was all we had from a sack perspective. So we had a total of 2 sacks between Montez Sweat and Jaquan Brisker. But it was a lot of fun, man. It was a lot of fun. I'm a defensive-minded guy, so I love defense. I love watching the game, and watching Matt Eberflus take over this defense, I had a lot of questions. I said, okay, I'm not really seeing what we saw in Indianapolis, but after bringing in Montez Sweat, the pass rush actually started coming together. And when you see that come into fruition and you see Yannick Ngakoue get better, you see Billings' job get easier, Javon Dexter's job get easier, and you start to see the secondary just able to chill out for a second, have a second, and just say, all right, we can focus on what we need to focus on right now. The ball's not coming out right away because guys got pressure. The guys got pressure. I mean, we're going to have to be on our toes. And you see guys like Tyreek Stevenson. You see guys like Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson and even Jaquan Brisker having success because of this. I would say Eddie Jackson, but he's really not doing anything. But with that being said, that's just my Eddie Jackson rant. Trust me, we're going to have a breakdown on Eddie Jackson later. But it's going to be exciting to see what could potentially happen moving forward. I think this defense is the best we've seen in the last couple of years. They're a young core. They're choppy. They're excited. They have fun together. I mean, that's exactly what you want to see. And on top of that, you have this core for the next several years to come. You have Montez Sweat now re-signed. You have Kyler Gordon, Tyreek Stevenson, Jaquan Brisker on rookie deals. You have Tremaine Edmonds. You have guys like TJ Edwards, and we're going to be able to rock out with this team for a while. Javon Dexter, you have Andrew Billings re-signed. I like what we have here. I like the fundamental core. I like what we're doing. I think it's going to be very interesting to see moving forward what they want to address in the offseason, because you have this idea that Yannick Ngakoue is likely going to test free agency. Pardon me. I don't know. I think it just died. He's likely going to test free agency. And with that being said, with him being on 4 teams in the last 5 years, it's a pretty fair shake that he's not going to stay in Chicago. But we'll see what happens. But I loved what we saw from them, man. 4 interceptions on Josh Dobbs, who, by the way, Josh Dobbs has had one hell of a year, man. One hell of a year, one hell of an athlete, one hell of a story. How can you not root for him? I hate that I have to root for him in a Minnesota Vikings jersey now, but it's definitely a conversation starter to say, could he potentially be the bridge gap quarterback following Kirk Cousins' departure this offseason? Because I don't think they pay Kirk Cousins that money. Personally, myself, I think Kevin O'Connell is a stand-up coach, but I don't think he truly believes in Kirk Cousins. I just see it on his face. I see it in the way they dissect the game. Pardon me. But we have those conversations and we say to ourselves all the time, how much do you really believe in somebody? Do you truly believe in this guy? Do you think this is going to be something that we can sustain long term? I just don't really see that. Now let's talk about the offense, because I saw Ryan Poles at the game. I saw him in the booth. He's saying they're running the same play over and over and over and over. He sees this. He is there. He is front, face, and center, seeing that Luke Getsy threw the ball more than 15 or designed plays to throw the ball, I should say. He's not throwing the ball. Over 15 yards less than 3 times yesterday. And it was all in the beginning of the game. Justin Fields obviously has the game-winning drive, and he set up DJ Moore, and that was an amazing play to get the ball down the field. And shout out to Justin Fields for being able to do that in the clutch, because he desperately needed that. Now, he is 3-1 in primetime games, but he's very bad in every other game. Now, shout out to Matt Eberflus for getting his first win within the division in the last 2 years. I believe now we're 1-9 in the division, 1-8 in the division in the last 2 years. But things just didn't look good, man, on any cylinder. I mean, there's a bunch of stats we can go around and talk about and have these conversations about, what the team could look like moving forward. But, I think at the end of the day, the thing that I have an issue with the most is the screenplays. I got into an argument earlier today about the conversation between Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields. And I think, shout out to my guy Tyler, first of all. My boy from 1-7, he does amazing things over there. Definitely check out 1-7 Music. But with that being said, we have these conversations about what is the difference between Justin Fields and other elite quarterbacks. And it always comes down to Justin doesn't throw the ball. Justin doesn't throw the deep ball, whether they don't trust him or they just don't design plays around him. Why isn't Justin Fields having success? And my argument, in all seriousness, because me and my guys, we go back and forth all day, and half the time I'm just bullshitting to piss people off. But in all seriousness, when I look at a guy like Lamar Jackson, who had an MVP season, who threw over 3,000 yards, who rushed over 1,000, who threw 36 touchdowns and like what, 6 interceptions, this season is not that different between Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson statistically. Justin Fields played in 4 less games than Lamar Jackson, and the stats are very similar. I mean, you look at their stats right now. Justin Fields on the year has 12 touchdowns and 6 interceptions with 1,578 passing yards. Lamar Jackson has 13 touchdowns and 6 interceptions with 2,618 passing yards. So I look at that, and there's so many people who are going to sit up here and say 2,600 versus 1,500 are totally different. Okay, but if you do the math and you say, okay, Justin Fields throws 200 yards a game, maybe, and you have 4 games to make up for. Okay, so that's 800 yards right there. So you're going to be in the 2,000. You're going to be around 200 less yards than Lamar Jackson, roughly 2 to 300 less yards. And you also don't have a Mark Andrews type player. You have DJ Moore, but Mark Andrews, second best tight end in all of football, maybe arguably the best if you count Travis Kelce's poor year. But with that being said, how has Lamar Jackson gotten to this point? From being at Louisville to being a Baltimore Raven, from winning an MVP to going into the playoffs damn near every single year, how has he gotten to this point? You could say it's Flowers, OBJ, Andrews, etc. A top 3 defense, who arguably to me is the best defense in the league next to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, I think you look at it and you say, John Harbaugh sacrificed what he was used to throughout his entire coaching tenure. He's a pass-first guy. He took Lamar Jackson and built a system around Lamar and slowly implemented Lamar into becoming one of the better passing quarterbacks in the league. On top of that, one of the better RPO play action type offenses in the league. And where I see Justin Fields' failures, I definitely acknowledge Justin Fields holds the ball way too long. When he scrambles, he's rolling out, and he should just throw the ball away. Instead, he's rolling out, and he's just over-exacerbating his body and doesn't have to do all these different things. It's coming into him getting injured. It's a big part of his game. I understand that. The fumbles yesterday, the back-to-back fumbles, horrible. But at the end of the day, when you don't have a system built around your quarterback, you're going to have an issue. Unless you're the San Francisco 49ers, where you have George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Christian McCaffrey, and Kyle Shanahan, and one of the better offensive lines to be able to disguise a guy like Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy's been solid as well, don't get it twisted. But if the Chicago Bears built an offense around Justin Fields the way the Baltimore Ravens have built an offense around Lamar Jackson, I think you would see a very different version of Justin Fields. I think you'd see a more confident Justin Fields, a Justin Fields who understands his role in this offense, a guy who understands his reads and his progressions and where guys are supposed to be, because he understands that he is the focal point. He is the option one. Same with Jalen Hurts. You have to understand at the end of the day where these guys want to be and how they're going to get there. So I'm really excited moving forward to see what the Chicago Bears could potentially do this offseason and able to do something like that. I'm not big on Caleb Williams. I'm not big on Drake May or Shedeur Sanders or anybody else you want to talk about. The one quarterback I do say I do look at is LSU's Jaden Daniels. If you actually look at the stats in this season versus Joe Burrow's championship season with LSU, they're damn near identical. And I look at that and I say, maybe it's just because LSU's not winning enough games. But I think Jaden Daniels is the truth, in my personal opinion. That's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. But with that being said, there isn't a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick that I would look at and say is better than Justin Fields right now. So I think if you rock out with Justin Fields, you bring in a guy maybe like Ben Johnson, like we've been talking about, offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, the offensive coordinator of the Miami Dolphins, maybe Jim Harbaugh, maybe one Harbaugh fixes another mobile quarterback. You have a guy like John Harbaugh who's managed Lamar Jackson. Hey, maybe Jim can talk to John about what it's been like managing him. Very similar play style from Justin Fields. Maybe they can figure it out. Who knows? But with that being said, we're not going to sit up here and have a coaching conversation today. We just want to talk about what's been working, because Justin Fields was 27 for 37 on the day. And I don't like those kind of stats, because as that is good from a completion percentage, and he did have 217 passing yards, and he did have 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Fields also rushed 12 carries for 59 yards and 0 rushing touchdowns. You have to have a real conversation that the majority of those are screenplays. So I can't value those completions as I would a Lamar Jackson, a Jalen Hurts, a Tua Tagovailoa, a Justin Herbert, a Patrick Mahomes, something along those lines. You know what I mean? I can't look at it the same because I watched the game. I actually am here presently looking at it. If I didn't know the Chicago Bears and I didn't watch Chicago Bears games and I saw Justin Fields was 27 for 37 on the day, looks pretty good. I mean, that's elite. That means you only missed 10 completions out of 37. I'll take it. But when you really watch the game and you dissect that and you realize that 95% of those plays were less than 10 yards, I mean, what are you going to say? So, I mean, that's really where I'm at with it. That's really how I feel about it. There's a lot of different levels to it. There's a lot of different conversations. And I think you can sit up here and say, at the end of the day, Justin Fields played his version of football. Maybe it wasn't the best version of football, but it got enough to get us the win, and I think that's all that really matters. The rest of the day, Roschon Johnson had 10 carries for 35 yards. DJ Moore had 11 receptions for 114 yards with 0 touchdowns. Cole Kmet, 7 for 43. Roschon Johnson, 5 for 40, who was amazing in the pass game today. We really got to see that version of him. Khalil Herbert, 2 for 14. Mooney had 2 for 6. We did not see Tyler Scott, and Darnell Mooney looked atrocious, to be completely honest with you. Darnell Mooney, I don't want to say is washed, but I think his time as a Chicago Bear is coming to an end, unfortunately. I think if you're going to draft Marvin Harrison Jr., you likely lose out on a guy like Darnell Mooney, just because instead of paying Mooney, I'd rather pay Johnson. You know what I mean? And an offensive line. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. We're rocking out with Marvin Harrison Jr., DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and Tyler Scott next year, and we have a better offensive line because of it, and we just have to sacrifice Darnell Mooney. I'm completely content with that. That's just my personal opinion. But, you know, he's trying, man. It just seems that ankle injury and other nagging injuries he's had in years past are just kind of dictating where he's at right now. Or on top of that, I could be completely wrong. It could just be Luke Getsy doesn't know how to use him in this system. That could also be a factor. You know, he was a 1,000-yard receiver, and I believe Matt Nagy's final year. And then last year he didn't look like himself, and then this year he didn't look like himself. So it damn well could be Luke Getsy. I have no idea. But with that being said, man, that's really what we got on the Bears today. Defense looked amazing. I love what we're seeing. The young core of this defense, I'm excited to see what the future holds. But this offense, DJ Moore, Justin Fields, and Darnell Wright. That's all I got for you. It's the only keepers I got on the squad right now. And I'm being critical. Because, you know, I look at Cole Kmet, I look at Darnell Mooney, they're all right, you know what I mean? But are they championship level tight end ones, wide receiver twos? I don't think so. I don't think so. But with that being said, let's transition. Let's talk about Connor Bedard, baby. Connor Bedard, man, of the Chicago Blackhawks has been an absolute godsend to Chicago. I mean, absolutely bringing back the hope to Blackhawks fans everywhere. But even after today was a heartbreaker. Patrick Kane, ladies and gentlemen, is signing with the Detroit Red Wings. I mean, I can't, bro. I can't even process that. If you would have told me that 10 years ago, I'd shit everywhere. I just can't. I pardon my language, but that is just like, that would be the equivalent of Michael Jordan going to the Pistons. You know what I mean? And it's so unfortunate, and it's just not where we want to be. It hurts my heart. It hurts my heart for real. But it's whatever. It's whatever. We got Connor now. It's not even a problem. Connor Bedard has been absolutely phenomenal for the Chicago Blackhawks, like I mentioned. You know, he's a guy who on the year is on pace to have 48 plus goals in his rookie season. He's breaking NHL records as a rookie. And as the team currently sits at 6-13, they're in position to still have a top pick going into next year's draft. And I think that's exciting. I mean, you understand, you know, you got your two big stars. And you got your guys that you know you're going to be able to win with moving forward. You know, you have to have a legitimate conversation. Fulgino, I love him. You know, you also have other guys like Taylor Hall. You have Connor Bedard, you know, Dickinson. You can do this all day long. But at the end of the day, I think we really need to sit up here and say, how far are they really from contending? And I think that's one of the bigger Krasinski and all of them. I mean, they've been great. And especially under Richardson, I think we have fundamental pieces right now to have success and a recipe for success. I just think if you're looking for wins right now in a playoff team, it's just not going to happen. I think you need to develop before anything. And I think that's what we're seeing from the Chicago Blackhawks right now. Connor Bedard, man, I mean, one of one. We did get news today. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what to say or express. The Chicago Blackhawks have cut right winger Corey Perry. We don't know why. From what I'm hearing right now, it is definitely an HR reason. It is definitely a reason that we're going to sit up here and probably not have answers to this season. Maybe we'll hear about it, maybe not. I'm curious though. I am really curious to see what could potentially happen. It's sick to have these conversations though. You know what I mean? Like, we've heard the news about Josh Giddey. We've heard the news about Perry. We've heard the news about Alan Williams and the running backs coach of the Chicago Bears. And there's just a lot of weird people in this world, man. And I don't understand like what could have potentially happened with Corey Perry, but apparently they're putting him on waivers. And if he clears waivers, they are willing to cut him to make sure he does not play another snap or another game in a Chicago Blackhawks uniform. That's just what I'm under the impression under. But with that being said, man, getting back to the positivities, because we're not going to neglect the negativities, but we're definitely going to talk about what's relevant in Chicago. Corey Perry is no longer relevant in Chicago, so we're going to have this conversation about Connor Bedard, who has been absolutely phenomenal on the year. So far on the year, man, he has been an absolute monster, an absolute stud. There's no way around it. I mean, look at him right now. In 19 games played, he has 10 goals, 7 assists, and 17 points. He's been a dog. He's been a dog. The only thing I'm really worrying about when it comes to Connor Bedard right now is just his health. He's a skinny guy. He's a smaller guy, and you understand how quick he is on his feet. He reminds me of a leaner Patrick Kane when he was a rookie, before Patrick Kane kind of put on some more muscle, put on some more weight to him. I'm really excited to see what Connor Bedard could potentially be for the Chicago Blackhawks moving forward. I'm looking at potentially one of the greatest Blackhawks of all time. That is not a hot take. If he is who we expect him to be, he is going to be up there with Stan Mikitas, with the Bobby Halls, with the Jonathan Tays, with the Duncan Keiths, the Patrick Kanes, the Marion Hosses. He's going to be up there with those guys. I truly do believe that. But will he be healthy enough to be able to have that type of career? That is the question. And I think we're really expecting to see that moving forward from him and from his camp. He's 18 years old. Give him time. His body is still growing. He is still growing and maturing as a person every single day. And we got enough goons on this squad to be able to have his back, and we've shown that throughout the last 19 games. But, I'm excited, man. Chicago Blackhawks hockey is back. It's always a good time at the UC. Blackhawks fans show out and show up for their team, man. And, Chicago Blackhawks hockey is like no other, man. The parades here, the fan base, the legacy, the original six. I mean, what we are and what we stand for this city is an absolute ball. So it's really cool to see that. Shout out to Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks. I definitely have to see him in person sometime this season. Probably going to go within the next couple of weeks, to be honest with you. But with that being said, man, let's get into it. Let's talk some Cubs, because I know that's where my expertise are probably the best. We got a lot of conversations going on right now. Obviously, first and foremost, Shohei Ohtani is the biggest name, the biggest head, the biggest face that you want to talk about and have conversations about. And rightfully so. You know what I mean? We all want to talk about Shohei Ohtani, but we've already talked about him. We've had these conversations before. We're starting to hear more about Bo Bichette and other third basemen that we could potentially see. Here's something that I thought about the other day that Bleacher Nation actually posted on Twitter yesterday. Is in the Dominican Republic Winter Ball League, Christopher Morel has been playing a third base, and he's been playing it very well. He's also been playing first base. So, there was the connotation and there was the idea that maybe he plays first this year, but I saw a couple amazing plays from him so far at third base. And for whatever reason, David Ross didn't trust the guy who grew up playing third base to play third base. I have no idea. We as fans still really don't know, but it really is just a conversation about that. And I think moving forward, having the hot corner discussion, it's going to be interesting to see what could potentially happen. But with that being said, I think there's a lot of different directions the Chicago Cubs could potentially go. And at the end of the day, I think we're going to have to sit here and wait to see. You know what I mean? I mean, there's so many different ways. There's so many different ways, like I said. And I'm sorry if I'm tweaking right now, because I swear to God, I hear this weird sound. And I don't know. I'm going to go check on something. So y'all give me 2 seconds. I will be right back. Bro, That was somebody's car. I was like, bro, is something exploding upstairs? It's somebody's car. Don't even worry about it. But no. So getting into it, we're hearing all these conversations about Nick Madrigal. We're hearing all these conversations about Christopher Morel and what the Chicago Cubs could potentially do at third base. But I think at the end of the day, for me, the biggest need for the Chicago Cubs is a legitimate cornerstone third baseman. There's no secret. I've heard the conversations about trading for Bo Bichette. I just don't think that makes sense. He has 2 years left on a relatively cheap deal where he makes like $11 million a year. He's a phenom all round, I guess you could say, shortstop. You know what I mean? And he's a guy who's going to bat over 299 a year. He's a guy who could pump out over 20 home runs a year, play stellar defense at second or at shortstop. But does he want to play third base? That's the real question. How is he going to be at third base? That's the real question. And more importantly, what are you going to have to give up for a phenom shortstop at the age of 25 with 2 years left on a relatively cheap deal with all the potential to re-sign him in the world? That's the question. You know what I mean? Would I have to give up PCA? Would I have to give up a Cade Horton, a Ben Brown? Is that worth it? A Jordan Wicks? Is it worth it? I don't think so. A guy like Matt Chapman is somebody I think the Chicago Cubs definitely need to go out on a limb and go after. That's just my personal opinion. I think we're starting to see that more and more from them, that they are willing to take a risk on older guys because of the veteranship and the leadership. But Matt Chapman is no scrub. A 4-time Gold Glove winner, a 2-time Platinum Glove winner. You know, he's a guy who can bat 240, 250 on the year with over 20 home runs. He's somebody that you can rely on in a lineup. He was the face of the franchise at the Oakland A's alongside Matt Olson, and both of them have had success since leaving. Obviously, Matt Olson a little more success, 50-plus home runs this past season, and obviously being an MVP candidate. But, you know, I think Matt Chapman on a Chicago Cubs team that desperately needs power, that desperately needs defense in the hot corner, would definitely have a lot of success. And I think that's more of a bridge gap guy for me while you wait for the James Triantos, the BJ Murrays of the world, than a guy like Bo Bichette, who's 25. Because the argument would be, all right, well, why not just re-sign Bo and trade BJ or them? If you have a 30-year-old in Matt Chapman, now he's 33 by the time these guys come up. Okay, cool. We could part ways. Woo, woo, woo. Everything's perfect. So that's really where I'm at with that for the Chicago Cubs. You know, I think there's a lot of different conversations, and I've said this before. And if you want to hear it again, I'll say it again. If you haven't checked out this episode, if we do not get Shohei Ohtani, my list as it currently sits is re-sign Cody Bellinger, extend him. You put him at first base. You sign Matt Chapman to a 2-3 year deal. You put him at third base. You have 4 Gold Glovers now, and Miguel Amaya, Yan Gomes behind the dish. You have Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson, Matt Chapman, and Cody Bellinger in your infield. You have PCA, who's a Gold Glove candidate in center field. You have Ian Happ, who's a Gold Glover in left. And then obviously you're going to have Seiya Suzuki in right, maybe potentially Kevin Alcantara. I think that is probably the best defensive team in all of baseball, and that's really where I'm at with it right now. That's the move I would make. That's the conversation I think we need to start having, is being the best defensive team in baseball, and the offense is just going to come with it over time. And I think at the end of the day, when you have guys like Justin Steele and you have guys like Jordan Wicks, Jameson Tyone, it's going to continue to get better. It's going to continue to get better because these aren't big strikeout guys. These are guys who put the ball in play. And when you have one of the best defenses and one of the best up the middle defenses in all of baseball, this is a recipe for success. So that's really where I'm at. You know what I mean? Especially under Craig Counsell, the positioning he's going to put these guys in is absolutely insane. And I am curious to see if Craig Counsell trusts Christopher Morel at third base, because if he does, it does tell me a lot more about the incompetence of David Ross under the Chicago Cubs 2023 team. But with that being said, man, that's really all I got on the Cubs right now. Actually, it's not. Actually, it's not. We had conversations about Tyler Glasnow as well. Shout out to my guy, DB. But, you know, it's really going to come down to, at the end of the day, what you want to value Tyler Glasnow at. Now, Tyler Glasnow makes $25 million in 2024. He had an amazing season last year. Did not have 30 quality starts, or 30 starts in general, but he had an amazing season coming off a catastrophic injury in 2022. You know, and you have these conversations about us needing a legitimate starter. And I hear those woes legitimately. You know, we have Justin Steele. You lose Marcus Stroman, but we need more. Jordan Wicks was solid. Cade Horton's not ready. Ben Brown is on the way. But what is that going to look like? You can't trust rookies to be aces. That's just what it is. You know, they're going to potentially become that. But if we want to contend right now, we need another star pitcher. Tyler Glasnow, who's 30 plus years old on $25 million a year contract, and the Rays are going to ask for our top prospects in return, it just doesn't seem legitimate. I would rather be in on a guy like Yamamoto. I would rather be on a guy like Shohei Ohtani, potentially trade for a guy like Shane Bieber, rather than do that. That's just really where I'm at with it. So if you guys feel a different way, that's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, man, I think that's really how I feel. We got McLovin in here, man, talking about, is it time to trade Justin Fields? 100% not. 100% not. First and foremost, because the trade deadline is over. And second, because I think throughout the last few games, he has shown you that he can be the best version of himself that you want. And unfortunately, what Luke Getsy wants him to do, which versus what the Chicago Bears fan base want him to do, are two different conversations. But at the end of the day, I think I've seen a lot from Fields. I think I am in a position right now in my personal conversation with my guy Rob Scott and others as well throughout the city. When I look at Caleb Williams, when I look at Jaden Daniels, Jaden Daniels is personally my favorite quarterback in this year's draft. And then you look at other guys like Drake May. I see Justin Fields and I say I'd rather rock out with Justin Fields. The others haven't shown me who they could potentially be. This isn't a conversation of Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson or who else was great coming out of the draft. Tua Tagovailoa. We could do this all day. I mean, I'm just stumped right now on a few names. But, we look at guys who have a lot of success. I think Justin Fields is that guy still to me. I still think under the right offensive coordinator and the right coaching staff, he could be that guy. Jason said, so who are you taking at number one? If I have the number one overall pick in this year's draft, no matter what team I am, unless maybe I'm the Minnesota Vikings, you know what I mean, or the Miami Dolphins, and I have Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson. If you're any other organization, I think you're taking Marvin Harrison Jr., whether you want a quarterback or not. Like if the Arizona Cardinals and my guy Jay Ness have the number one overall pick and they take Caleb Williams, you're a fool. You're a fool. I mean, I'd rather rock out with Kyler Murray than not take Marvin Harrison Jr. And Marvin Harrison Jr.'s dad was actually on the 2006 Colts, who beat the Chicago Bears in the Super Bowl. So the universe has to right that wrong. He needs to come to Chicago and win a Super Bowl in Chicago for what his pops did to me, to a young Mike Hughes, a 6-year-old Mike Hughes who just wanted to see the Bears win the fucking Super Bowl. And we didn't get to see that, baby. But we could right that wrong. I believe if you go into this offseason, you franchise tag or extend Jalen Johnson, you have one of the better young defensive cores in football, in my personal opinion. I'm talking to my guy, Rob Scott. Rob Scott's in here right now, baby. His decision-making and ball security is basura, and that's something we can work on. I see, here's the thing. When you look at a quarterback and you see their inabilities to do specific things, I think you can have a conversation with yourself as a fan and as a football fan about what could potentially happen in the near future. I see a guy in Mitch Trubisky who is never going to be able to read a defense, who is never going to be able to catch up to NFL speed game time. When I see Justin Fields, I see a guy who is going to have success, who can read a defense, who understands his assignments and where he needs to be. The problem with Justin Fields is you hold on to the ball too long. You don't need to go the distance. Yeah, I mean, I hate when he's getting sacked by 3 guys and he's still trying to fight for that extra yard. No, go down, lay down. You're hurting. You're going to hurt yourself. You know what I mean? He's going out of his way to try to make a play, and sometimes you just got to know when to say when. That's just real. I don't need you getting hurt. Same play when he broke his thumb. I mean, you're holding the ball for like 17 seconds. You didn't need to do that. Get the ball out. Go. Get it away. That's all you got to do. Tua's done it, and he's done an amazing job this year. That was Tua's issue last year. Finally started. Hey, it only took him 4 concussions to fucking change that. And I think Justin's going to finally start to learn that. And I think if you, like I was saying, if you have this core, this defensive core that I've been talking to my guy Rob about, you look at Montez Sweat, Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, Jaquan Brisker, Tremaine Edmonds, Andrew Billings, Yannick Ngakoue. I mean, TJ Edwards, the list goes on. Jack Sanborn, Kyler Gordon, Spider-Man himself. You know what I mean? Who, by the way, last night gets a fucking he got a penalty for what? For someone pulling his face mask off. So he took off his helmet during a play and he got a penalty for it. It's crazy. Unsportsmanlike conduct, my ass. Dude, you just ripped off my fucking face mask. Be fucking for real. But with that being said, I look at this defensive core, this defensive unit, who have grown so much throughout the last 12 plus games. I'm excited to see what they could potentially do. And I haven't said that in a few years. I love this defense. I think they can get after it. My thing is, can this offensive line be revamped enough in one offseason to make a difference? Darnell Wright, Tevin Jenkins. You can stay, you can stay. Everybody else, get the fuck out of Dodge. That's really where I'm at. That's really where I'm at with it. I mean, there's no way around it. There is no way around it. I think at the end of the day, you have to have a legitimate conversation with yourself that these guys just aren't these guys. You know, Lucas Patrick is absolutely awful. Lucas Patrick is a criminal. I mean, the man gets touched and he's gone. He's gone for 6 to 8 weeks. I can't. My back. He can't. I mean, it's just upsetting. It's just upsetting. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's just real. It's just real, and it's just what it is. Cody Whitehair, amazing career as a Chicago Bear, but that time is over. You know what I mean? And I think there's no way around it. There's no real conversation you can sit up here and have. My guy Rob said we're becoming the monsters of the Midway again. And that's real. We are becoming the monsters of the Midway again in Chicago. What did Frankie say? Frankie's out here talking crazy. He said Tua making concussions look like it's better than for the man, bro. I'm just saying, bro. If you have the consistency of horrible play, and you sit up here and you say to yourself, man, listen, this isn't working. I got to make changes. I think Justin Fields is going to finally have that conversation this offseason. And I think having the right offensive coordinator and the right coaching staff around you is going to be able to dictate that. This is a team that I feel like Justin Fields walks up to Matt Eberflus and says, this is what I'm doing this week. And Matt Eberflus says, okay. What? You know what I mean? Like, bro, this is not a coach. This is not a coach. This is a team that last night had over 100 yards worth of penalties. And I've coached ball. I've been a part of teams. And when the reality of the situation is, more times than not, you could have a dumbass on the field. Don't get it twisted. You could have one guy who gets you all 100 of those yards. But the reality is, when it's everybody on all phases, on all three phases of the ball, special teams, offense, defense, all of it, we're getting penalties worth over 100 yards a game. We had over 70 yards worth of penalties in the first half, over 6 penalties as a whole. The reality of that is lack of discipline, which means you have lack of coaching. And that's really where I'm at with that. If you have a coach that you're not afraid of, you're going to do whatever you want. You're going to be undisciplined. And that's real. Like, man, I had this coach, Ben Needed. Shout out to my guy, Ben Needed, because I want to tell this story. I don't talk about him enough. If we fucked up, not only would we be out of the game, man, we would be at practice the next day running Indian runs. And I'm not going to name his name, there's no disrespect, but the heaviest motherfucker we had on the entire team had to stay at the front of the line until everybody else finished. He would make us do wall sits. The offense would be on one side, the defense would be on the other. And we'd start singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat from start to finish. You could not miss a verse. From start to finish, you had to sing Row, Row, Row Your Boat with weights on our hands. Doing a wall sit. Then the defense, 10 seconds later, would have to start singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat from the top. So we're singing probably 10 seconds ahead, and they're singing 10 seconds back. And God forbid you mixed it up. You'd have to start all over again. And, dude, like, that's the shit. That's the shit I'm talking about. We used to put motherfuckers on our back and crawl. Do bear crawls with guys on our back. Just sitting. And I'm not talking about, like, wide receiver on wide receiver. I'm talking, like, offensive linemen on the running backs. Safety on linebacker on the quarterback. Like, there was no subsequence to where you could sit up here and have poor play. Somebody said dude on dude action. On God. Pause. Resume. But in all seriousness, though, we were afraid of that man, but we respected that man because we understood it came at a price, and that price was winning. Right now, the Chicago Bears, I feel like, show up every single day like this is a 9-to-5 minimum wage job. And when you work a minimum wage job, that means you have minimum effort. We are getting minimum effort from the majority of this team. Why? It's because they don't care anymore. You're 4-8. We do not care. We are checked out. We do not want to be here. We don't care to be here. And honestly, this team is so short in so many different positions. You can't afford to cut me or bench me if I'm not performing well. So I don't care. If Matt Eberflus had a hair on his ass, he would say right here, right now, that Justin Fields is the quarterback of the future with or without me. Justin Fields is that guy. And Luke Getsy, I'm sorry, you're gone. Here's the best part. Josh McDaniels gets fired as the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. That following Sunday, they win a game, and they party like it's the fucking Super Bowl. That's just real. That's just real. You have Matt Canada get fired as the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then the very next Sunday, Kenny Pickett throws over 400 yards for the first time all season, for one of the first times in his entire career. They're hitting Pat, the tight end, like he's been invisible all year. They finally hit him. Johnson looks great. Pickens looks great. Najee looks great. All these other running backs they have look great. Pickens looks great. And that's real. So to me, when you go 27 for 37 on the day, that's perfectly fine. But when you're not throwing the ball more than 10 yards, I can't look at that and say that's legitimate. I can't. Frank Reich gets fired. He didn't even fucking do anything. The fucking owner was the one that wanted Bryce Young. We heard Frank Reich wanted CJ Stroud. The owner said, no, I'm stepping in. I want Bryce. Yeah, you're a fucking idiot. Should have stayed in your place. Owners should own. Coaches should coach. That's just what it is. And somewhere in the middle, you can have that conversation. But no. I think at the end of the day, the real conversation here to me is the Bears front office and the Bears ownership more than anything doing their due diligence and letting a guy like Luke Getsy go. You got to let him go. Let our quarterbacks coach run this bitch. Please. There's what? What are we right now? 4-8, 12 games. So we have 5 games left. What could hurt? Their GM was at the game. But yeah, that's just real. That's just real. You know what I mean? And I think at the end of the day, you have to have that real conversation. You know what I mean? Ryan Poles comes into this. We understand. You know, he gets hired, and 2 days later, the head coach is hired. We know at the end of the day, the McCaskies made that hire, and it's a bridge gap hiring. We understand that's not Ryan Poles' guy in the future. We are going to hopefully get our head coach of the future this offseason. But I will say this, to that point, what are we going to do moving forward that's going to change the development of Justin Fields or whatever quarterback is playing for the Chicago Bears? That's just real. What are we going to do? Because you could sit up here and say, you could sell me that Justin Fields isn't the guy. But under this regime, from what we've seen, a team that doesn't run the ball well, a team that doesn't throw the ball well. So you want to make an excuse about Justin Fields not having success, but why isn't Khalil Herbert having success? Why isn't Roshan Johnson having success? Why isn't Deontay Foreman having success that we've seen them have success under other offensive coordinators before? Roshan was a dog at Texas. Foreman was a monster in Carolina last year. Khalil Herbert looked great under Matt Nagy, and I hated Matt Nagy. But let's be real. Nobody's having success under Luke Getsy. Put Tua there. Put Mahomes there. Put Lamar there. I don't give a fuck if you put Justin Herbert there. I don't care if you bring Tom Brady from his prime back. No one's having success under this system. If you throw screens 95% of the time, you are going to fail 95% of the time. I saw a corner yesterday on, who was it? Was it St. Brown? I think it was St. Brown. He just completely leaves St. Brown because he knows right off the bat that St. Brown's just blocking, and he goes and he tackles DJ Moore right off the rip. What does that tell you? I saw the general manager of the Chicago Bears up in the press box, and they showed his face, and he said, same play over and over and over. And he literally does this with his hand. I'll post a picture later. I mean, that's just real. That's just real. The GM's looking at you and he's saying, man, you're a fucking idiot. Pardon my language, but I don't give a fuck anymore. That's real. At the end of the day, man, we need to be better. We need to be a better organization. And in order to do that, man, I'm tired of this. Man, that's not what we do. We don't fire coaches in the middle of the season. We have respect. Respect your franchise quarterback. Respect your team. Respect your roster. Respect your owner. Respect yourself. Respect the fans. And respect your general manager. And get rid of this motherfucker, bro. That's real. You want to sit up here and say we don't fire people because we have respect. Well, guess what? Luke Getsy disrespects this organization and this fan base every single time he steps on the field. Fuck that. Now, to Rob Scott's point, Rob just with that being said, pardon me, the mic got muted for a second. Frankie says, respect my gangster, and Rob says, fuck that, fire Flus right now. He's starting a petition. You have to sit up there, though, realistically and say to yourself, hey, man, I'm cool. I'm cool with firing Luke Getsy. Matt Eberflus can stay the rest of the season. The defenses looked great after he took over defensive play call. I won't lie to you. He's looked godly as a DC. Started off a little rough, but after bringing in Montez Sweat, I loved what I've seen. We got 8 interceptions in the last 2 games. Now, I still think Flus needs to be fired at the end of the year. That's no secret. But right now, Getsy looked bad last year. Getsy looks bad right now. He looks worse. Get him out of here. No shot. You got DJ Moore and Robert Tonyan and all these other pieces in a revamped O-line, and you're throwing fucking screen passes 95% of the time. I got Jason in the comments saying you need to reset the front off the head office and head coach. The head coach, sure. The whole coaching staff needs to go. And what people don't understand is how good of a general manager Ryan Poles is. Ryan Poles, to me, is one of the best general managers in all of football. You want to sit up here and tell me, after watching maybe 1 or 2 Bears games in the last 5 years, that he's not a good GM? Not only did this man clear house, but he has been able to get you the number 1 overall pick in back-to-back years, and you still see success. I see guys on this defense trading for a guy like Montez Sweat for a second-round pick and extending him. Jalen Johnson. You have Tyreek Stevenson, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, all these other guys I've listed throughout this whole conversation today and throughout this entire season. The defense looks great. The defense looks great. And I love what he's doing. Darnell Wright, Tevin Jenkins, all these other guys you have, DJ Moore. And getting DJ Moore, by the way, in that deal with Carolina for the number 1 overall pick, stellar. You've been able to position yourself to have success in so many different ways, and you have over $100 million in salary cap. Still going into this year. That's phenomenal. Ryan Poles, to Rob Scott's point right here, he says, Ryan Poles has not had a chance to bring in his staff. He deserves a chance to see what kind of personnel he can put together. And that's real. We knew the Bears ownership were the ones that hired Matt Eberflus. They were the ones that hired Luke Getsy. And at the end of the day, we also have to understand that Ryan Poles didn't draft Justin Fields. So he's done such an amazing job at looking at what guys could potentially be. Now, he has missed. I'm not going to lie to you. You know what I mean? Like, Velus Jones in the 3rd round, miss. Chase Claypool, miss. Not paying Roquan. Listen, Roquan's been great this year. He's an all-pro. I hear you. I understand that. But at the end of the day, would he have been that here? I don't know. You know what I mean? He kind of just was very consistent here. He wasn't all-pro here. And I think that's the difference. The defense is a lot better. He's ready to win. But it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting to see what we could potentially do. And it's funny to me. is funny to me because I got Jason in the comments right here telling me if we keep this GM and head coach, y'all aren't going anywhere. Tell me where Dallas is going. Tell me where Dallas is going. I just want to know. I'm just asking. Jay, how about them Cowboys? Where are they going? First round exit. That's all I know. Every year, baby. Every year, like clockwork. Ain't gonna change till Jerry go. Claypool was a fat L, though. I will say that. But, I'm seeing moves. And here's the thing. When you look at Claypool and what Claypool was at the time, I personally hated it. I hated it. I mean, I'm not a Claypool fan. I never was a Claypool fan. Everybody who knows me knows Mike Tomlin is my favorite head coach in all of football. And if Mike Tomlin gives up on you, that means one of two things. One, you're not talented anymore. You can't give him production. Or two, you're not bought in. And Claypool wasn't bought in. Claypool has talent. He's just not bought in. He just doesn't give a fuck. If you want to make it to the NFL, get paid, and then just plateau like Eddie Jackson and Chase Claypool, that's fine. But not in that kind of facility, not in that culture. That's why I love a guy like Mike Tomlin. Hey, you're not producing for me? Get the fuck out of here. That's why Matt Canada gets fired. You know what I mean? That's why Najee Harris is RB2 now. I don't care where you got drafted. Now, for the Bears, you have Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle, St. Brown, and Pettis at the time. You got to make a move for somebody. Personally, I would have rather they went after Jerry Jeudy, but it definitely does make sense to how the thought process of maybe we can turn Claypool into something. If you had a good coaching staff, I think you could have argued that. I haven't heard Claypool say one word with the Miami Dolphins because they're winning, because they're having success. And that's just real. I don't know, man. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. We have one final topic. Don't want to even talk about this one. The Chicago Bulls. It's going to be short because I don't care. I do not care, man. If you're new here, hit that follow button. If you haven't followed the TikTok already, definitely follow us at theshy.kid or on Instagram at theshy.kid. And make sure you tune into Welcome to Mars on Wednesdays and Saturdays. My podcast with my brother and I, Rob Scott, we co-host it. It's an absolute ball. It's an absolute blast. But with that being said, the Bulls, man, I got nothing for you. Got nothing new that I got to say. Not a single thing. No excuses, no real conversation. My guy Jason, who I've been reading the comments of, if you're watching this on TikTok or on Facebook, he's a Rockets fan. I clown this man daily. I used to clown this man daily for being a Rockets fan. Rebuilding team, trash, dog shit, horrible. And guess what? The Rockets rebuild has already been more successful than the Chicago Bulls. It's over. This experiment is over. Everything with the Bulls is over. I'm watching Dylan Brooks and Sengun and a very young Rockets team have success. I'm seeing other organizations like the Minnesota Timberwolves have success. I'm seeing the Pelicans starting to figure it out. I'm seeing all these different teams having success. The Orlando Magic, the Indiana Pacers. I mean, they're all having success. And at the end of the day, I look at the Bulls and I'm like, man, bro, let's be real. We started rebuilding in 2016, 2017 when we traded Jimmy Butler away for Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine, and Lauri Markkanen. It's been a long time. And all we have to show for it is a play-in loss to Jimmy Butler and a first-round exit to the Milwaukee Bucks. Shout out to the Milwaukee Bucks. But yeah, it's just, what can I say? What can I say? What can we do? You know what I mean? The Lakers, to Frankie's point, Frankie's a Lakers fan in the comments. Man, the Lakers have revamped their team fucking 5 different times, and they've all been better than what the Bulls have been able to do. The Bulls right now are the last team in both offensive production and defensive production. That is not just on this roster. That is on Billy Donovan. That is on Mark Eversley. And that is on Arturas. That's just real. The whole front office. Jay McLovin, if you're still here, that is a team in Chicago that needs to fire their front office and their head coach. The Chicago Bulls. Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Halliburton, Obi Toppin, Denny Avdija were all available, and we drafted Patrick Williams, who in 29 games started 0 of them in college, averaging like 9 points a game. Who's been better, but fuck it. Anything's better than 9 points a game. I mean, come on. You draft Dalen Terry, Marko Simonovic, Ayo Dosunmu. Shout out to Ayo, but, like, what are we doing? And then, like, you just don't answer the needs of this team. 3-point shooting, better defense, you know what I mean? A legitimate facilitator. You don't answer any of these questions. That's just real, bro. I mean, it's just real. I don't have anything for this team anymore. I see a DeMar DeRozan frustrated. I see him breaking towels. I see him ripping jerseys. I see Zach LaVine pushing PR people, requesting a trade, and Alonzo Ball that might not even ever play basketball again. A Nikola Vucevic who's like, I don't know what you want from me. Like, we're gonna try. That's all we can do. And Alex Caruso, who's just quietly having one of the best seasons he's ever had in the NBA. But shout out to Alex. Shout out to Caruso. But nah, man, like, it's just bullshit. It's just what it is. I'm currently writing articles for Chicago State of Mind. Chicago State of Mind, if you haven't checked them out already, you can download the Substack app right now and check out every article I've written for them right now, whether that's Chicago Sky, Chicago Bulls, Chicago Cubs. I'm writing it. They're doing amazing content, everything Chicago sports. It's just unfortunate when I write about the Bulls, because every single time I open my laptop, open a Google Doc, and start writing, I feel like I'm repeating myself. And that's not this year. That's every year. I feel like I'm repeating myself. We are having these same conversations every single fucking year. Yeah, Zach LaVine just hasn't taken that next step. Yeah, Debo's regressing. Yeah, Alonzo's still hurt. Patrick Williams still sucks. What are we doing? What are we talking about, man? Like, real. And of course, Caruso having an amazing season every season. But that's just real, bro. I mean, there's no way around it. There's no conversation I can sit up here and have with you right now. But I mean, and Jason just puts up a comment right here. He says, bro, you got more talent, still suck. That's real. The Bulls have a good team of good players, but they do not play well together. That's just real. You can have a roster of great guys. I mean, look at, to Frankie's point, look at what the team was. Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. You know what I mean? That's great. That's good players. They just didn't play well together. They look so much better in different places. Look at a team like the Los Angeles Clippers. James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Russell Westbrook, Terrence Mann, Zubac. I forgot Zubac's first name, but Zubac. All these different guys. Great players. Oh my God. And Ty Lue? Oh my God, great coach. They're not playing well together. It don't matter if you have good players playing together. If y'all don't complement each other and know how to play together, that's just what it's going to be. It's just a bunch of good players. You want a good team. You need a great team. We're the Chicago fucking Bulls, and we deserve that. This is a good roster. But they just cannot play together. No way around that. And here's my thing. Fuck the trade deadline. Trade them now. Trade them now. Why? Why wait? They lose to the Nuggets without Joker, Murray, and Aaron Gordon. 100%. And by the way, oh my God. DeAndre Jordan last night. Absolutely, oh my God. Destroyed the Clippers. Oh my God, DeAndre Jordan. I forgot that man existed. But man, with that being said, bro, I appreciate everybody tuning in today. This is a longer live, but, we used to go over an hour by myself all the time. Now I find myself just doing 20 minutes because I got so many different things to do throughout the day. But this was fun, man. I missed the All Shy recaps. The All Shy recaps are always a blast, bro. It's always a blessing. We got new Cubs stuff coming out all the time. We got Welcome to Mars coming tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. And tonight, baby, I got the semifinals. And if I win the semifinals, we also play the championship game right after that. Will we be the Kings of Lakeshore Drive in Chicago, baby? We'll see. My football team, prime time. We getting after it, baby. I'm excited about it. Hopefully tonight I can come back and call my boy Rob Scott and say we won the chip. I've had a concussion. I've had motherfuckers step on my foot. I've had motherfuckers kick me in the knee. We better win that mug. That's all I'm saying. It's gonna be hell to pay if we don't. We're 7-0 going into the semifinals tonight, potentially winning the championship tonight. Wish us the best of luck. Until next time, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. This is Mike Hughes, aka the Shy Kid from Mike on the Mic podcast. Peace.